Alright, well, hello everybody. This is a project that I have yet decided what I wanted to do on. A couple months back I actually turned the chassis into an external cooling solution for another rig. Unfortunately the fans just aren't good enough for cooling. It maintained the same temperature just for longer, so it didn't really add a benefit, I guess, other than being able to keep the temperature longer before climbing up. But anyways, we have the Corsair Obsidian 900B tried and true chassis. I love it. I have two of them. The other one has some issues, but that's here nor there. So, anyhow, what I'm currently thinking, because when I originally got this chassis, it was all in one piece, but I cut out the 5 1/4 bays. I still have access to mount 6 drives here. I could technically do 9 down here, but the power supply that's currently in it, I'm not using it in this particular build. I wanted to, because my original build that I bought in the 900D, I still got the power supply for, and the graphics cards for, the radiators and all that. And I thought about rebuilding it, but I was like, nah. I honestly don't want to deal with water cooling anymore. It's kind of inconvenient when you need to make some changes and you got to drain your entire loop to do it. So I think I'll focus on this one being air cooled. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 6 drives down here. We have a 120 cooling fan. Since I no longer have the bracket for the very front bottom, I'm going to modify the front drive cage down here to accept 120 mil fan, because they only have fan mounting on one side of them, which is understandable. And then, being that I originally planned on having a radiator right here to get into it and have the alignment correct, I had to drill out 120 millimeter holes that were already in the chassis, and now a screw just goes through it, you know. So, no bueno there, so I'm going to have to put some nuts on them to hold the very front 2 fans up here. And we'll have 6 more drives here, so we'll have a total of 12. And then I'll have 2 more 120s on the back, the 4 120s on the top, and then a 120 back here. I kind of like, I don't know, symmetry and whatnot, and the aesthetic look. Like I could have got a 420 AIO for the top, and I was like, yeah, that's all cool and all that space, you know, with the 420. Cool, but I'm so used to seeing this chassis with 4 fans on a radiator that it's like throwing 3 fans up there. Not my flavor. So we're going to run air cooled. So the CPU water block's coming off. I don't even know what I'll use that on, if I'll even use it again. But I do like the block. It's a Jace 2 cents Corsair XR5, I believe it is, or shit, don't quote me on that. I probably just misspoke, but it's a JTC, so Jace 2 cents block, and I actually like it. Definitely like how it looks. It looked better in my 1000D, but one of my radiators sprung a leak on my 1000D, so it's currently disassembled, and I'm rebuilding it in a different way, which one of the radiators out of that guy right there is going to go in it. So that'll go from 3 to 2, and then the other one will still have 4 radiators in, but instead of having 4 480s, it'll have 2 Corsair XR7 480s in the front, and 2 Corsair XR7 360s up top. So it is what it is, and being that they still want arm and a leg for their new fans, I might, yeah, I'll just use my previous fans. So it'll be done with Lee SL or Uni SLs, whatever. And then this one will be running Corsair LL 120s. So it is what it is. Power supply is going to be an EVGA Supernova G3000 watt. Red and black sleeved cables, more than likely. If I feel like adding color to it. I mean, honestly, I almost want to take out my Corsair fans and just put in some black fans and keep the whole thing black, but I'm standing in the light, excuse me. There's really no good lighting here unless I get like lamps. Next purchase, I guess. So, anywho's, now I'm not sure if I'm going to use this motherboard either, because I have some options, right? Since I built this mid plate here to separate the bottom from the top, right? Kind of get it like its own dual chamber type thing, in essence, even though it still kind of has one on the back for routing. And FYI, I find this to be easier to do cable management in than the 1000D. And there's oddly very little differences between this chassis and the 1000D. Like, they're practically the same height, the same length. Their width obviously varies because you can't put two 480mm radiators in the front end and on top of this. But I kid you not, if you added probably an inch, literally just an inch, you could put two 480s in the front and in the top. Maybe an inch and a half, I don't know. Let me find my tape real quick and we will decide. Which I just, now I found it. Alright, so the 1000D from edge to edge is 10 and 15/16. And so, yeah, a little over an inch. So, an inch and 3/16 ought to cut it. But that's literally about it. So this one is what, 25 5/8 it looks like. That one's 25 3/16, which is funny because on that one I actually technically measure from right there because that's literally the back of where the chassis is on that one. And then since they got this big plastic frame, I mean, it's the same obviously, but if you're looking at it, you know what I mean. And then this one is, yeah, just under 25 5/8, and that one's 25 3/16. So this one's actually longer. And then if we go height to the top, we got literally, I have an angle there, so 27 inches, right? 27 inches right here. So on the 1000D, right, it's 26 3/4 to roughly this part, but then it's got that raised section there, so it takes it up, what was it again? must have been on something earlier, so yeah, it's just under 27 to the top, and then it's just under 27 and a half to the top raised piece on it, so literally not a whole bunch of difference other than, you know, that 1 3/16 this way that allows you to put in 4 480s. Ultimately, what I would love to have seen is they do that with something like the 900D, you know. I think that would have been nice, or I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, you know. You're just going off of, you know, your best judgment, whatever not. So it's like, okay. So anyhow, what my plan is, right? Is I'm going to keep the mid plate, and I kind of want to keep the back plate that I have back here, you know, right there. And then I had a front one made, and I made that out of 1/4 inch like plywood, right? It's not compressed, it's actually ply, but I didn't have enough funds at the time to, yeah, I was broke, dude, still kind of am, but anyhow, I didn't have the opportunity to go with an acrylic pen, right? I had some acrylic. Unfortunately, the pieces I had weren't big enough to do this, and I had enough to do 2 pieces down here, and unfortunately my templates were slightly off, which I thought they were on, so they got butchered. So this was actually the first piece made out of wood, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, I kind of like that, right? I was originally going to keep it the wood color, the brown, but really, I don't know. I don't know if I would like that or not. I think it would have looked okay, but a friend of mine was like, yeah, nah, dude, do something with it. So I'm like, yeah, probably. Anyhow, so I think the black looks great. So I still would have to cut out a couple of pieces for the pass-throughs to get front and back, and then I had water pumps mounted in here, so I still got a few things to clean up, trim, make nice, cover over with a little paint, and then, you know, maybe do the front piece, which will cover the majority of this so you can't see all of the original pass-throughs. But at the same time, I'm not really kind of building it for show quality. But I guess if you're going to do it, anything worth doing is worth doing right. So we'll go there. I ultimately ended up making the front 5 1/4 bay removal slots into a solid piece. I used the originals. I probably should have done something different just in case I wanted to switch it up, but it now has a logo, the Corsair logo in the front, which sadly got a little faded when I was doing some work. My rubbing alcohol decides that it likes to eat off the paint or whatever filament covered, whatever material they use when they make that 1000D front logo that lights up, because the original in the 1000D is now in here, and I had a custom one made for that. And if it didn't take forever and it didn't cost a pretty penny to buy, I would have the same logo in this one, which is, you know, kind of like my company logo, which would help obviously get the brand out there. But anyhow, so I do have a back to the conflict, right? Sorry, I got sidetracked. I saw a squirrel and I ran with it. So with a 1000-watt EVGA power supply in here, right? Right now I've got a Asus Rampage 6 Extreme Omega, and then I have an EVGA RTX 2080 Super, but I have an RTX Strix that I could put with the Asus motherboard. Unfortunately, I don't have an air cooler for it, so I'm thinking, well, being that I have an EVGA graphics card, I have an EVGA power supply that I can use, why not put in the EVGA motherboard that I have? Because ultimately maybe I'll sell it, I don't know. And it's like, okay, I really like my Asus products, so I'm kind of hesitant on selling those. But I also have, you know, a few EVGA products, and I don't know, man, you know, they got out of the graphics cards game, so it's their 20 series and 30 series, or what, the last cards they've made, if they make them again. And so I don't necessarily want to go, oh man, let me put EVGA in, because then if I sell it, I'm going to be mad, because EVGA motherboard, EVGA, and I have two of them, so if I wanted to, I could put two of them in instead of go with additional storage, right? So I'm like, it's a tough call. I can run Asus, EVGA, and EVGA, or I can go EVGA, 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 and I don't know, because like the cooler I'm looking at, right, since I'm going to go air cooled, it's a Corsair cooler. Now I'm not a, say, fanboy, but I do like a good majority of Corsair products, right? It's like my lighting in this one, which seems Corsair IQ did not launch correctly, but you know, since you can't see any of my fans going, like that one's not going, but you can see the memory, that's great, but you know, the rest of the fans aren't going, which IQ definitely does suck. But I've got Lee and Lee fans, I've got 5 volt ARGB 3-pin, right, for the graphics card connections. The water block is a Fantech, so they got a weird connector that then goes to a 3-pin connector that, right, and I think I actually have that one tied onto the motherboard right now. Actually, yeah, I do, because that one's a 4-pin, excuse me, that one's a 4-pin, not a 3-pin. And so that one's on the motherboard, right? Now, Corsair IQ, right, because I have the little nodes, right, the little Corsair IQ nodes, the 2 LED nodes, right, so I have 2 of those in there, and I have the RGB from my Lee hub, right, 3-pin to a connector to the 3-pin for Corsair, bam. So all my fans, right, let me actually do this real quick. We'll open up IQ. Odd, that's probably why, because my memory is not working correctly, which is another thing I hate about Corsair Dominator Platinum. Ever since I put it in this chassis, it hates me. When it was in the 1000D, it ran perfect. I tell you what. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get the lighting going here. Might have to actually shut down IQ and relaunch it. Wait for it. There it is. Look at that go. Oh, purdy night. Anyhow, so I'll just leave it like that so you can see. So, anyhow, this is not on IQ, but let me relaunch IQ. Maybe, I guess I didn't double click. There we go. Alright. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Memory's not showing up, which is frequent. The motherboard's also tied in, and do I got a coffee stain on my shirt? It looks like I got a coffee stain. Oh, I do. Wow. I can only see that in the camera. My apologies. That made me look like a slob. Anyhow, we'll see if we can actually get... Alright, so that's if I turn my memory mode on, right? Apparently, for some odd reason, with my memory not functioning correctly for whatever freaking reason, Corsair But if I turn it on, right, obviously I get my fan lighting back. If I turn it off, obviously it turns off. And then, let's see, and if my memory was shown, I could actually show you easier than I'm in Corsair. And for some odd reason, OBS won't let me record, so I can't do a screenshot. Did it? Okay, there it goes. So anyhow, that lighting is part of my Corsair, link with the Win Lee software. Same with the GPUs that just came on, and can't really tell with this light on, but the motherboard lighting and the CPU lighting, just water block came on as well. So, and I wonder if it'll let me change it now. So, not that I really like doing this, but we'll say go rain. Right, that's the rain function, which let's go to, let's say, sequential. Right, doing its thing. Now we'll say, let's do marquee. Alright, let's try color warp. Got to click on it first. So that's all Corsair IQ lighting control doing that, right? And it's really not hard to locate items that allow you to use controllers that you already have. Now, there are some downsides, is you might not find them at a reasonable cost, but there's adapters out there. Like the Fantex block has like a 4-pin weird connector that goes to a 4-pin, DRGB, right? And then the graphics cards are 3-pin ARGB, right, 5-volt, and I have a 3-pin to Corsair 3-pin on the lighting node, so easy, right? And the lighting is good. Now, I did have an issue by connecting the front LED on the Lee O11 XL. That one probably really should be plugged into the motherboard, right, which could still technically be controlled by IQ. Don't quote me, I think it did. I think I had it there at one time, but I wanted to try this route because that one has to be calibrated. Like, what color is it? Red? Is it green? Is it blue? What color is it right now? You select it, and it's programmed. But if you get like adapters from 3-volt to, or not 3-volt, excuse me, like a 3-pin 5-volt to whatever adapter or hub you're using, more than likely you're good to go. Or if you possibly can, you get a hub and then you tie that one into a separate hub. Like, there's ways to do it, right? And I do it because Signal RGB is straight trash. The first time I installed it, I got a virus or malware of some sorts. I had to wipe my entire system, and I was like, nope, never again. And I actually, the never again was a lie, because I ended up trying it a little bit later, and the free options, in my opinion, aren't enough, right? It doesn't give you a whole lot of control over it. And why in the hell would I want to pay anybody to be able to control the lighting in my PC? Kind of gay, in my opinion. Excuse the word. Not what I meant, so hopefully you won't take that wrong. So, anyhow, all the lighting's controlled by one, right? So great. So now on this one, if I run the Corsair fans, right, I can use IQ. I have Corsair memory. I can use IQ. The downside about it is, right, with an EVGA motherboard, which is a X299 FTW-K, it has very little lighting on it, very little options, because, I don't know why you would put RGB on your product and limit the options. At that point, don't even put the RGB on EVGA, because you have to use their app, right? And Signal RGB won't even find the LEDs for an EVGA motherboard on the X299 platform, in my experience. Okay, and then you have your graphics card lighting, which you can control through the same program, but for some odd reason, it always seems to forget its correlation. Like, I have an EVGA NV-Link bridge for both these 2080 Supers that I own, and I can set the motherboard to a color, right, but it doesn't automatically set the rest. Okay, that's kind of a cool feature. If I say pulse on the motherboard, it's like slower than a snail's ass, and then it'll start pulsing these ones, but the NV-Link bridge never stays the color that you want it. Like, every time you reboot, something's changed on it. So EVGA's RGB is horrible. So that would leave me, right, sadly, is I would have to either turn the EVGA motherboard and the graphics card lighting off, or I'd have to set a static color for it and then set the rest of the fans for a static color. Not a whole lot of enjoyment there, you know what I mean? So it's like you can't sync everything in this to a nice uniform pattern. So that's what I find horrible about the EVGA product, right? But still don't want to get rid of it. So what I'm thinking is kind of difficult choice, right? I could turn it into a secondary, server, and if I do that, I'd want as much storage as I can get, not necessarily as much graphics power as I can get. So the way I think it would go, and I actually have a little bit more storage option in essence for the EVGA board, is the Asus board here only has 6 SATA ports, while the other one, the EVGA board, has 8. So I can go these 6 drives right here that I'm going to place right here, and maybe 2 SSDs that I mount on the back up here, right? And those can go to the motherboard. Sweet deal, right? Then I'll have 6 more drives down here, which I can tie in to a PCIe to SATA adapter, which is right here in between these 2 cards. Now, this one is an M.2 expansion. It is and I think in this motherboard, it's on a mechanical X8 slot, even though it's physically X16. But it's an X8 adapter, supports 2 M.2s, and is powered by a 6-pin from the power supply. I've never used this one. I got it in a parts bundle when I bought a ton of hardware off of a guy, which was the motherboard, the CPU that's in there, a whole bunch of stuff. I pretty much cleaned the guy out. Like, almost all of the water cooling fittings that I have in this rig over here, minus a few, came from him. I bought a ton of shit off this dude, right? So anyhow, then it's got the Asus M.2 Hyper X16. Now this one's Gen 4, this one's Gen 3. So Gen 3, so I'd still be limited to Gen 3 speeds on that one. But what I've thought about, which is actually horrible, because if I switch to the EVGA, I'm going to have to take the processor out of this motherboard to put in there, because the one that's in there, I can only get this slot for a graphics card, get the slot underneath here. Actually, no, wait, hold on. No, I'm golden. Okay. So, if I had a 2-slot card, right, I couldn't use the one right underneath here. I could only use this one and that one, right? So being that this is a 3-slot card, there's a slot right above here, right? Can't use it if you don't have X amount of lanes, right, for your processor. So the one that's on the EVGA is a 7800X, this is a 10920X. Some more PCIe lanes, which means I'd free up that, so never mind, right? But I'd still have to switch if I wanted, I'm pretty sure, some storage, because I would run out of lanes. So I have to go, because the EVGA board, as far as I know, supports bifurcation. So having that in that slot would automatically, I think, yeah, it would take this one down to 8 anyways. But this one should still work without this one impeding it. Anyhow, so 4 M.2s, 2 M.2s, but I am thinking about maybe getting a second one of these, which would, never mind again, because I just have to collapse and thought. I have a different, that's where my train of thought went. I have a different M.2 expansion card that also houses 4, and it supports bifurcation on board. So even though it has an X, I'm pretty sure it's still an X16 long slot. Don't quote me, I haven't pulled it out of the other rig for a minute, but I don't know. Anyhow, it's I think it runs mechanically at 8, but it can read all 16 lanes of 4, 4, 4, 4. So it's like, okay, great. So I'm thinking I'll keep this one in here so I can get all 16 lanes. And then I'll get the other one in here. That'll be, all 16 technically, we'll say. But all 4 M.2s, the EVGA supports 2 on board. So I would already have 10 M.2 drives if I go that route. And if I go this route, which is also perfectly fine, right, other than, I have mismatched. I have the EVGA power supply, EVGA graphics card, Asus motherboard, so I kind of like matching shit, and this is already kind of bothering the hell out of me, having the EVGA on on the Asus board. Okay. But anyhow, if I do go this route, I'd still be perfectly fine. I could put my other M.2 adapter right in there, right, and add 4 more, which was great, because this one, I get 2 more drives. I'd have 4, 8, 10 with 2 on board, and then 12 with the DIMM.2. So this thing's like a savior. I love this thing. And if I could ultimately afford the EVGA 3647, which is still, to this day, outdated now, like the X299 platform, it's not new, but the EVGA 3647 Asus motherboard, damn dude, I can't even remember what it is off the top of my head. All I remember is it's sexy. But I got 8 slots for memory on that one, which I think it supports 256 gigabytes, and then you get 2 of these, and I think it has 3 M.2s on board, so 2, 4, 7, right, that's just on motherboard and DIMM.2, so 7, 11, 15, and it's got more slots, right, so I more than likely could get a graphics card in there and a few M.2 expansions for storage. I live in a dream world. I like expensive things, I guess. Unfortunately, right now I'm broke. That's why I'm making videos for you guys. So, we'll see how it goes. I really don't know if I want to go through all the painstaking work of cutting out pieces and whatnot, and then I gotta get this thing supported up in there, which should be alright once I get the other power supply in. I don't think and it's kind of going to be a pain. I don't know. I haven't figured out exactly how I'll do it. I mean, I don't need to make it all fine and fancy for what it is, but again, you know, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right. The only thing that I probably won't do quite yet is make a cover, excuse me, for the back of the front piece right here, as I still have a few things to button up to finish on the front to make it, you know, complete. And then I still have to sand down and do some work on the bottom portion of the front panel, this section here. But you know, it is what it is. Right? So in the next video, we should see me starting to assemble some stuff. So thanks for watching.